Hello and welcome to Teachings in Education with your favorite instructor, Frank Avella. This video will cover everything you ever wanted to know about classroom management. It will cover a variety of different topics. Some areas will include building a culture, setting rules and expectations, delivering consequences, and handling classroom disruptions. We will begin by exploring the teacher's role in classroom management. Understand that the behaviors of the student within the classroom are a direct product of the teacher's environment. I'll give you an example. A tale of two different teachers. You might have seen a group of students that learn and behave well for one particular teacher, but this same group will misbehave for another teacher. The difference is the teacher. Teachers have a responsibility to create a safe environment for their students. If they don't, expect to find bullying and abuse in the classroom. Teachers must first focus on behavior, get their attention, and then focus on learning. As each classroom is different, each teacher should have their own viable classroom management goals. The next topic is becoming seen as an authority figure. When teachers present themselves in an authoritative manner, it helps them gain the respect and trust necessary to lead students. The best way to be seen as an authority is to exude confidence. Be confident in yourself, be confident in your ability to teach. You'll never be an authority if you're afraid to challenge your students. The ability to challenge someone is a sign of strength. Next, be direct when speaking. Speak with conviction. Use strong statements to address misbehavior. Also, don't get rattled. Stay calm and maintain your composure. Show that you're always in control. Be sure to stand up straight when teaching in front of the classroom. It's a way to show confidence and power. When addressing the classroom, speak with a deep and steady voice. Do not rush your words. They should wait. And lastly, dress like an authority. It sends a message to your students that you're all about business. Now, it's absolutely necessary to build your own classroom culture, which will be a foundational support for your classroom management and instruction. Building a classroom culture begins with a vision and goals for success. What you want to do is create a shared vision with your students. Ask them what they want out of the class and out of their lives. Use that vision to create some actual SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. Now, after you come up with these class goals, you need to market them. Post these goals in the classroom on the walls. Use a growth mindset to achieve the goals. It's about continually working and getting better and better until you achieve that goal. Be sure to reinforce the vision. Whenever you get a chance, give your students a pat on the back, encourage them. And everything begins and ends with assessment. Evaluate your progress toward the vision. So here are some vision examples for at-risk students. It may be as simple as an increase in attendance, or an increase in reading proficiency, creating a family-like environment in the classroom, fostering friendship, decreasing bullying, or getting your students on the right path in life. The next step to building classroom culture is to incorporate rituals and themes. Teachers can use classroom rituals and celebrations to bring the class together. Know your students' birthdays and celebrate their birthdays. Take the time to plan a field trip for the class. Get them out of the building. Bring in a class pet, something like a fish. I love when I see some high school teachers greet their students with a special handshake. Every once in a while, show a movie as a break, as a reward. Sending a positive note home will make all the difference in the world for that one child. Celebrate Student of the Month. Change it up every month. And display all your students' work, showing the world and them how proud you are of them. The third component to building a classroom culture is to meet your students' needs. All children have basic human needs that guide their behavior. Teachers should observe and ensure their student needs are being met. The two leading theories in education are by Glasser and Maslow. Glasser states that students will behave in a way to meet their needs. The first need being survival, as all children will need food, shelter, and love. The next need is to feel empowered. Children want to feel power over their lives. They want to feel freedom. They want to be able to make decisions and choices that affect their lives. Human beings are social creatures. Everybody wants to belong. So do students. And lastly, your students are going to want to have some fun. On to Maslow's hierarchy, which is similar to Glasser's. In Maslow's hierarchy, the most basic needs are at the bottom, and they move upward. These needs include physiological, safety, love and belonging, esteem, and at the top, self-actualization. And the last step to creating a classroom culture is to create the proper environment for student learning. Teachers must make their classroom safe, clean, and aesthetic. The room should be neat and clean. It's not just the janitor's responsibility, it's also the teacher's. Ensure students are not on top of one another. They, just like anyone else, need their personal space. Lighting should be adequate in the room. They have to be able to see the board to see their papers. Arrange the classroom in a way that limits traffic and allows students to easily move. Try and provide a quiet space. It could even be used for a timeout if necessary. Your classroom should be decorated accordingly. Science posters for science classrooms. Don't forget to include your students' cultures. The classroom environment should be a blend of the personality of the teacher and the personality of the students. That's how you decorate your room. The next section is classroom rules and regulations, and we're going to first look at rule establishment. Rules are important because they inform students of the behavior that is expected of them. When creating rules, you want to have about 3 to 5 rules, any more than 5, and don't expect the students to remember. Have them written in positive statements. Say arrive on time instead of don't be late. They must be clear and specific. Avoid writing them as long sentences. And lastly, give the student a say in the rules. Ask them if they have a problem, any suggestions about the rules. Next, you have to enforce the rules. A teacher's rules must apply to all students all of the time, no exceptions. Consistency is key. You have to enforce rules day in and day out. And that means enforcing them in a manner that is fair for all students. You cannot play favorites. To further enforce the rules, have them posted somewhere in the classroom for all students to see. Also, if you're in the flow of your lesson, maybe enforce the rule a little later on. Teachers should avoid having the principal enforce the rules for them. Principals are often too busy, and it's a sign of weakness. Lastly, to enforce rules, you have to be able to track them. An example is elementary teachers using stop signs. We're moving on to the next section, procedures, which will have your class running like a well-oiled machine. Procedures can create an organized, safe, and controlled classroom. Here are several areas where you should develop procedures for your students to follow. The first was to have a procedure for distributing materials. Have a procedure for taking attendance, and it should start with everybody showing up on time. You must have a procedure in place for taking tests. Voices off, face forward. Have procedures for group activities. In order to stop students from talking over each other, practice speaking procedures. Bathroom use procedures are useful at all levels. That way learning isn't interrupted as the student has to leave. Have a bin for students to place their homework, so you don't have to wait for them to find it. And you definitely want a procedure in place for what students should do if they should finish early. Their boredom will lead to misbehavior. On to the next section, which is consequences, and I'll start with the basics. First off, the consequences should be known by the students. They should know what they are getting into when they misbehave. Stress the cause and effect relationship. Clearly explain to the student what caused the consequence. When creating consequences, try and align them with your school's vision. Reinforce positive behaviors whenever you can. Give high classwork grades for those who behave. Let your students know it's not personal when you issue them consequences. It's just business. Here are just a few examples of consequences. Email to parents, detention, timeout, moving seats, personal one-on-one talks, loss of privilege, making students have written apologies, and so many more you can think of. At this point, I just want to take a quick break and ask that you don't forget to give me a quick thumbs up, a like for this video. Back to the material, and we'll enter the documentation part of consequences. A teacher once said, "If it wasn't documented, then it didn't happen." Teachers should document any serious incidents that they had with the student. It's for their own protection. When you actually write down what a student did, that action becomes permanent, and the student knows it's on their record. Write it down word for word so everybody knows what was said. It makes a difference. Be sure to jot down exact dates, times, locations, witnesses. Be as specific as possible. Make sure that you're organized. Keep a parent log. Store all write-ups in the same place, like in a file cabinet. However, it's best to be digitally organized today. Electronic folders will work even better. Now onto the last section of consequences, which is implementation. The first question is, when should teachers respond to behaviors and implement consequences? If at any time someone's safety is at risk, you must intervene. Never allow your students to disrupt learning. Immediately deal with the disruptor. And if any of those 3 to 5 rules you created are broken, you have to respond. And when responding, you want to do it as quick as possible, unless it's a minor interruption, in which case you keep teaching. Your consequences should be logical. If a student throws a paper on the floor, make them pick it up. When responding to student behavior, make sure that you, the teacher, maintains the student's dignity and inherent respect. Lastly, consider using behavioral lesson plans. I'll post some in the description links below. The next section is classroom disruptions, and we'll start with minor disruptions. Minor disruptions are those behaviors that do not warrant punishment, but still compromise learning. Some examples include students tapping their pencils, whispering, doodling, giggling, etc., etc., etc. Now, one method to deal with this is to quickly get quiet during the middle of the lecture, bringing attention to the student. If you don't want to stop instruction, maybe give the student a quick look. Another way to signal to the student is to leave a small note on the interrupting student's desk. Quickly mention the student's name to get them back on task. A non-intrusive way to deal with minor interruptions is to quietly tap on the student's desk. But the most important thing is to realize that you don't want to be the one to stop student learning. Don't let a minor disruption ruin the flow of learning, unlike a major disruption. Don't overreact. And sometimes you could actually just ignore the behavior. Do be careful with the ignoring technique though. Next up is chronic disruption. That is the continuation of behaviors even after being addressed by the teacher. And the best way to deal with chronic disruptions from a particular student is to gradually increase the degree of consequences, like walking a student up a ladder. Because the behavior is chronic, be sure to document the exact number of times the behavior occurs. Ensure that students are taking responsibility for their actions. Tell them it was your choice, your consequence. Both teachers and students should move forward towards conflict resolution strategies. One suggestion for chronic misbehavior is to have the student sign a behavior contract. With chronic behavior students, get the parents involved, schedule a conference, make phone calls to them. To find the cause of a chronic behavior problem, conduct a functional behavioral analysis. Now, because each student is different, you're going to have to find the most effective consequence for each individual student. For the teacher, it always helps to take some notes and reflect on what has been working and what hasn't been working. On to the third type of disruption, which are major disruptions. These types of disruptions that endanger teachers and students. Examples include destruction of school property, fighting, starting fires, making threats, and bringing in weapons. Before you actually deal with these types of behaviors, you first have to read your school policy. Also, you should know your students, read their IEPs and their 504 plans. Check for medical issues. With major incidents, you must contact your administrator, unlike with minor disruptions. Be prepared to know where the first aid kit is located and where the nearest exits are. And if you're ever threatened as the teacher, be sure to speak with your teachers' union about what steps to take to protect yourself. The next topic is instruction for classroom management. Well-planned, engaging lessons will decrease student behavior problems. To avoid boredom, change up your lessons. Don't do the same routine every day. Have clear objectives to keep your students on task working towards a goal. Inquiry-based learning activities are engaging and foster problem-solving skills. I've seen wonders using fun, hands-on learning activities like bridge building for my BD classroom. Talk to your students and find their interest. Use that knowledge to create activities and emergent curriculum. You need lesson planning for your instruction to run smoothly and keep children on task. Add some humor and jokes to your instruction. The students will actually enjoy the class maybe. And lastly, you have to differentiate instruction. The students require work that is challenging, but that they're able to complete. Now we're going to wrap this thing up with some final thoughts. Remember, you're going to have to routinely reteach rules and procedures. Students are going to forget, especially after a vacation. It's important to try and understand some common reasons that students misbehave. Those reasons include unclear limits, wanting attention, boredom, avoiding work, home issues. Pick your battles. Not every day has to be a war. Also, it's okay when your students misbehave. Remember, many of their problems aren't about you, the teacher. Classroom management is something you have to work on. Make it your #1 priority. Right now, I want to say thank you for your time. Don't forget to please subscribe, like, and share this video. Also, please check the description for links and resources below.